A digital paradise may be the most subtle dictatorship ever created. Let me start with a question that sounds simple, but really isn't. What if the future we're being promised, this sleek, immersive digital paradise, turns out not to be freedom at all, but something far more subtle and far more restrictive? Because that's the uncomfortable possibility sitting at the heart of the metaverse. On the surface, it's sold as liberation, a place where physical limits disappear, where distance doesn't matter, where you can work, play, socialize, and even reinvent yourself without constraint. A world of endless creativity and connection, all wrapped in stunning visuals and cutting-edge technology. But now here's the thing. Every time in history we've been offered a new technology that promised freedom, there's been a catch. And usually, that catch only becomes obvious once the system is already in place. So let's take a step back and really look at what's happening here. The metaverse isn't just another app or platform. It's a shift in how reality itself is experienced. It blurs the line between the physical and the digital in a way we've never seen before. And when you cross that line, something fundamental changes. Because when your social life, your work, your money, and your identity all exist inside a digital environment, whoever controls that environment holds an extraordinary amount of power. That's not speculation, that's architecture. Inside the metaverse, every movement can be tracked, every interaction can be logged. Every choice, what you look at, who you talk to, how long you linger, becomes data. Not abstract data, but deeply personal behavioral information that reveals how you think, what you want, and how you respond emotionally. And this isn't just passive observation. These systems are designed to learn you, to anticipate you, to shape the environment around you in ways that quietly influence your decisions. The more immersive the world becomes, the easier it is for those nudges to feel natural, even invisible. That's why the metaverse isn't just about entertainment or connection. It's about control, soft control, psychological control, the kind that doesn't feel like force because it feels like choice. But let's be honest with ourselves. We've seen this pattern before. The printing press was supposed to free minds. Instead, it led to censorship regimes and licensing systems. Radio and television were meant to educate and unite, yet quickly became tools for propaganda and narrative management. The internet arrived with promises of decentralization and free expression, only to be quietly consolidated into a handful of platforms that now decide what gets seen, what gets buried, and who gets silenced. The metaverse is not a break from that trajectory. It's the continuation of it. Only this time, the environment itself is the medium. And when the environment is controlled, behavior follows. What makes this especially powerful is how deeply it taps into human psychology. Virtual worlds aren't just places we visit, they're experiences that engage our nervous systems. They reward us intermittently. Likes, upgrades, achievements, training us to stay longer, come back more often, and gradually prefer the digital over the physical. Not because the digital is better, but because it's engineered to be more stimulating, more predictable, more responsive to our impulses. Over time, this rewires what feels normal. Real life starts to feel slower, messier, less rewarding. And that's when dependence sets in, not through force, but through preference. Now, add another layer. The metaverse doesn't exist in isolation. It's being built alongside digital identity systems, virtual currencies, and AI-driven governance. When your avatar, your wallet, and your access to social spaces are all linked, compliance becomes baked into participation. In a system like that, exclusion doesn't require punishment. It only requires revoking access. Access to workspaces, access to markets, access to communities. That's what makes this model so effective. It doesn't need bars or guards. The rules are enforced quietly, automatically through code. And here's where the illusion of ownership comes in. You might buy virtual land, digital clothing, unique assets, but you don't truly own them. The platform does. The rules can change. The terms can shift. Assets can be frozen, devalued, or erased with a policy update you never voted on. Convenience replaces sovereignty. And slowly, the idea of autonomy is redefined. What's especially striking is how this shift is framed as inevitable. as progress, as the natural next step. Resistance is portrayed as backward, fearful, or anti-technology, but questioning the structure isn't rejecting technology. It's understanding power, because the danger isn't virtual reality itself. It's centralization. It's the concentration of control in systems that govern not just information, but perception. When algorithms decide what you see, who you encounter, and which ideas are amplified or suppressed, choice becomes curated. And over time, curated choice starts to feel like reality itself. That's how echo chambers form. Not by accident, but by design. Different groups are fed different narratives, reinforcing division and confusion. While people argue with each other, the system that benefits from the fragmentation remains untouched. And all of this happens quietly. No announcements, no declarations, just gradual normalization. So what does this mean for freedom? It means freedom becomes conditional, tied to behavior, tied to compliance, tied to alignment with whatever values the system enforces at that moment. That's not liberation. That's a gilded cage. And the most effective cages are the ones you walk into willingly because they're comfortable. But none of this means technology has no place. The metaverse isn't inherently evil. Virtual environments can be used for learning, collaboration, creativity, and connection. Those possibilities are real, but intention matters. Design matters. Who holds the keys matters. A centralized metaverse, owned, governed, and monetized by a small number of corporate or institutional players, will always prioritize control, predictability, and profit, not human flourishing. Decentralized alternatives offer a different vision, one where users retain ownership of identity, data, and assets, where participation doesn't require surrendering sovereignty, where systems are transparent rather than opaque. But those systems don't build themselves. They require awareness, discernment, and a willingness to say no to convenience when the cost is autonomy. And maybe the most important piece of all, human consciousness cannot be fully digitized. No matter how immersive the simulation, it can't replace the grounding reality of the physical world. The body, nature, direct human connection, skills you can touch and practice without permission from a platform. That's where real freedom still lives, not in a headset, not in an avatar, but in choices made deliberately with eyes open. The metaverse, in the end, is a mirror. It reflects our desires for connection, meaning, and escape, but it also reflects our willingness or unwillingness to trade sovereignty for comfort. The door to the cage isn't locked yet, but it is being built. And recognizing it for what it is, that's the first step toward making sure it never closes.
But don't take this as absolute truth. Check it yourself. Question it. Think. If this kind of thinking resonates with you, subscribe and drop a like. And I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. What do you think? Any topics you'd like me to cover next? These videos are made for you, after all. See you soon!